when I was writing The Beak of the Finch, I had the image of one of those frozen waterfalls that you see on the side of the highway on a road cut. You can infer from that that water was trickling down the cliff. You can infer that gradually it's frozen and more has flowed down, and all of those shapes have formed up gradually by that accumulated flow. But you don't see any of that flow yourself as you're driving by.
Try to imagine 1,000,000 years. Recently, scientists cultured a bacteria that had been locked in salt crystals for 250 million years. To feel that age, imagine if you're in your 20s living your life times 10 million. Imagine. Our imaginations are also the result of evolution. In our brain, in the unimaginably complex matrix of nerve cells that form our mind, deep in the genetic code in those brain cells, there are some structures similar to the genetic code in ancient bacteria. We have learned this uncomfortable fact that we are linked to pond scum because at last science has passed the first milestone in deciphering the codes in our cellular DNA, the human genome.
We have yet to find a gene structure that is unique only to humans. Obviously, there's some differences, but the differences are minor. That's why evolution is a field of study. Every one of our genes came from another species at some other time.
No one knows what came before humans, what the stages were between pond scum and now. What we do know is it took an immense amount of time. The competitive instinct to survive and the ability to attract the best mates.
If anyone objects to this union, please step forward at this time.
The first Homo sapiens stepped forward about 100,000 years ago, a best guess by fossil scientists.
You may now kiss the bride.
Sharks evolved at least 100 million years ago. They even survived the asteroid impact that wiped out almost everything else. And over time, as evolution has continued, we now have the oddly shaped hammerhead shark, eyes on the ends of wing-like stalks. And yet under the skin, inside the cells, checking the structure of the DNA double helix molecule, we share almost exactly the same code for life as the shark.
A lot of our protein sequences are 100% identical in all mammals. 100% identical, not close, identical. To understand evolutionary distances, we have to go to yeast and bacteria to find things that are really different from the human genetic code.
3.5 billion years ago, the first DNA molecules began to replicate, building in complexity, but based on a simple 4-letter code, 4 amino acids. Those 4 acids in endless combinations controlled all of life then, and they control all life now. All species in existence today will continue to evolve and may eventually blink out. But the 4-letter code of DNA will continue forever.
Where our species is right now, I think, is a great experiment. We really don't know in the long run how successful our species is going to be, and we're a tiny little blip in time for evolution the way we exist currently.
Charles Darwin, whose original brilliant thinking gave us the theory of evolution, came ashore here for the first and last time on September 17, 1835. He was 26 years old and was serving as a ship's naturalist aboard the HMS Beagle. He had been at sea for 4 years and had been seasick almost every day. He was happy to be on solid land, but taken back a bit by the brutal landscape.
Everywhere the lava is covered by stunted, sunburnt brushwood, which shows little signs of life. The dry and parched surface, being heated by the noonday sun, gave to the air a close and sultry feeling, like that from a stove. We fancied even that the bushes smelt unpleasantly.
And it reminded him of the misty origins of the earth. He said, here, more than any place else, perhaps, we are brought closer to that mystery of mysteries, the origin of species.
Charles Darwin stayed ashore in the Galapagos only 5 days, about the same time cruise ship passengers now spend exploring these strange and remote islands.
That's how the Earth looked like a few million years ago.
I thought that it looked like we were on the moon or another planet, the beginning of the Earth all over again. I really like that part about the Galapagos.
Especially the sea animals really excite me. The seals, the turtles.
Yeah, and you can be so close to them and yet feel free, and they can feel free. It's lovely. It is.
I was just a meter away from the penguins and just could observe them for 5 minutes, or as long as I wanted.
Darwin sailed on, around the world, returned to England to live a quiet country life, and never went to sea again. But the memories of the strange animals of the Galapagos continued to inspire him throughout a lifelong quest to solve the mystery of mysteries.
The zoology of the archipelago will be well worth examining, for such facts undermine the stability of species.
Darwin would spend the next 20 years examining facts, painstaking research, careful note-taking, in an effort to better understand what he observed every day on farms in the English countryside. He had made one of the first connections when he visited pigeon breeders. If God had created every form of life on the face of the earth, why was man able to breed such an odd assortment of variations?
We have some 200 well-known and accepted breeds of pigeon. Some of them are very, very attractive. Some of them are almost ugly, but everyone to their own type, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, of course.
As Charles Darwin witnessed what domestic breeders could achieve, guiding the shapes of animals to benefit the beholder's eye, he became convinced that over time, environmental pressures might be having a similar effect, selecting traits for survival that would benefit not the beholder, but the animal and plant species. He noted that change was not always of benefit to the newly born and the newly budded. These tumbler pigeons have been inbred to such an extent they can no longer fly.
They fly backwards. It's like backstroke almost in swimming. It's almost a reverse wing action. It's usually a matter of clapping your hands or just stamping your foot, and they'll do it.
But once in a great while, the change might be beneficial. Darwin's genius was in imagining change beyond what he could witness in his lifetime. Imagining evolution occurring over eons on a vast time scale.
He couldn't see the motion, but he could infer it was there, and he could work out the laws of motion that had brought all these wonderful shapes into existence gradually, layer by layer, bit by bit, generation by generation. So it was all inference, and it was magnificent inference, maybe the most magnificent act of imagination that a human being has ever achieved.
On the Origin of Species by Natural Selection was published in November 1859. It sold out immediately. Conservative church officials were outraged, but many intellectuals embraced Darwin's dangerous idea. Thomas Henry Huxley, a noted zoologist, defended Darwin from attacks by the church.
Huxley's life was changed when he read The Origin of Species in 1859, and he recorded in his memoirs that his first thought on reading the book was, "How incredibly stupid of me not to have thought of that myself." And I thought, this is a song cue if ever I heard one.
Richard Milner should know. He has written a musical about Charles Darwin.
Of course, it must be so. I should have seen it long ago. 'Twas adaptive radiation that produced the mighty whale. His hands have turned to flippers, and he has a fishy tail. Selections made him streamlined for his liquid habitat. Why didn't I think of that? There was an ancient mammal that could hop and leap around. With webbing twixt his fingers, he could fly right off the ground. And so this mousy creature evolved into a bat. Why didn't I think of that?
Other scientists in the 19th century had not been able to think as clearly as Darwin, due in part to prevailing religious beliefs and in part to a failure of the human imagination.
The human imagination is very, very limited. We are very, very bad at making intuitive guesses as to how long it would take to evolve something.
Now that technology allows us to examine life in minute detail, we can observe evolution in action. And some of what we see is terrifying.
When is a diet pill worth $153 a bottle? When you're more than 20 pounds overweight and every diet plan has failed. Now there's Leptoprin.
Specifically developed for the significantly overweight, backed by a United States patent, a double-blind published clinical trial, and an ironclad 100% 30-day money-back guarantee. Leptoprin is simply the most powerful, clinically proven weight control compound available, period.
If you're one of those people who constantly worry about 5 or 6 vanity pounds, Leptoprin is not for you. Leptoprin is much too expensive and much too powerful for the casual dieter. But if you're one of the millions of Americans who are 20, 30, 50 pounds or more overweight, you need Leptoprin.
So when is a diet pill worth $153 a bottle? When it works, really works.
Isn't it time you tried Leptoprin? Call 1-800-490-6763. 1-800-490-6763.
We'd love to show you the world's next great video game. There's only one problem. You haven't created it yet. You've played them, now you can make them with DeVry's new bachelor's degree program in game and simulation programming. It's classrooms and labs where you actually create video games. Games like you'll find when you log on to DeVryPowerUp16.com. You'll learn more about this exciting degree program and get free video game demos from Vivendi Universal Games. It's time to take it to the next level. You can earn a 4-year degree in less than 3 with classes that start right away. And since it's DeVry, you know you'll get this and even more of this. Call 1-877-DeVry16 or go to DeVryPowerUp16.com for your free video game demos. But do it now, because when you're a gamer, you know what happens when you stand still. So call or log on for your free video game demos. It's right now, and it's here at DeVry.
Friday, a week alone in the desert. In this arid, hostile environment, water is scarce. This is a place where everything either bites you, stabs you, or stings you.
Survivor Man, Friday at 10, only on the Science Channel.
We all deserve to breathe fresh, clean air, especially in our homes. With the Sharper Image Clean Air Now campaign, America's most trusted brand of air purifier is offering an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. The Ionic Breeze cleans and circulates air with no fans, no filters, silently. The Ionic Breeze has even earned the seal of the prestigious British Allergy Foundation because it's been proven to reduce airborne allergens. Order today and we'll give you a free $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze. We'll even pay your shipping so you can use the Ionic Breeze risk-free for 2 months. If you decide to send it back for any reason, we'll pay that shipping too and keep the bathroom Ionic Breeze as our gift. But that's not all. For the first time ever, call right now to find out how you can get an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. That's right, it is amazing. A free Ionic Breeze Quadra.
Call 1-800-742-2959.
Tonight, science lets you play hockey on hardwood floors and gives you a place to take a nap on how it's made. Then on Beyond Tomorrow, raise an army of foosball players that look just like you. It all starts tonight at 8, only on the Science Channel.
There was something big missing.
Most of the universe is made of something else, and we have a chance to figure out what it is.
Most of Our Universe is Missing premieres Tuesday, June 13th at 9, only on the Science Channel.
Darwin's theory is quite evident in the AIDS epidemic. As millions of victims face death each year, we are brought face to face with evolution, visible in our own lifetime. The AIDS virus, identified in the early 1980s, has been changing itself at a horrifying and rapid rate.
HIV evolves extraordinarily quickly, so it's on the far end of the spectrum of rapid evolution. And you can watch the virus evolving in the course of an infection with a single individual.
The HIV virus is not very good at making copies of itself. Whether that is a flaw or a survival strategy, the result is deadly. The virus invades the human cell and, in reverse of the cellular process, creates 2 copies of its own viral genes called RNA. The result is a new double helix sequence, often with mutations, inserted into a section of the cell's DNA. The human immune system can't keep up with the rapid changes evolving in the machinery of its own cells.
It's part of the reason we don't have a vaccine yet, this extraordinary variability that we're up against.
Mutation, natural selection, change. We are surrounded by it. We can witness quick-time evolution, visible in the span of our lifetime, in progress right now out in the Midwest, in places like Kansas. Farmers are fighting a war against pests that are ravaging their crops. Pests like wheat flower beetles. The battle weapons are pesticides used on a massive scale out in the fields and in the storage elevators. The beetles fight back with their most effective weapon, rapid evolution.
Random mutations are occurring all the time, and every once in a while one of those mutations will confer resistance.
There is no argument. In the fields and grain elevators of Kansas, in just a few years, beetles have evolved that can survive deadly pesticides. There is no argument. In the medical clinics there, new variations of the HIV virus strains have evolved to survive the body's best defenses. But in the schools in Kansas, there is a raging argument. The theory of evolution is the focus of a major battle.
I think the reason that evolution was looked at is because the way it was addressed in the national standards, like it was a fact, like it was beyond question, like it was beyond investigation. No, I think the evidence is lacking to say that it's a fact.
evolution did happen. There is a body of knowledge that says millions of years ago the species split, and that we're mammals. We're part of that system.
The political fight in Kansas is just a recent skirmish in a drawn-out conflict. In the century and a half since Darwin published his theory, there has been a seesaw battle over the teaching of evolution in American schools. The Scopes trial in Tennessee in 1925 focused world attention on the war between science and the Bible. The press immediately headlined it, the Monkey Trial.
Quiet, children, it's not King Kong, it's Mr. 8, symbol of the Monkey Trial.
John Scopes had been charged with teaching evolution, that man had evolved from lower animals, an idea that had been banned as a subject in the schools of Tennessee. He was convicted, fined, and later the conviction was overturned. 42 years later, the law was overturned. Times have changed, but polls continue to show the country split. Almost half of all American citizens believe that God created man in his present form within the last 10,000 years. Science seems to be losing.
I refer to evolution as science fraud.
John Baumgardner has led a fundamentalist crusade to ban evolution as a requirement in New Mexico science classes. The irony is that Baumgardner is a scientist, a geophysicist at the Los Alamos National Laboratory.
If you want to look at the logical structure of my belief, it's rooted and grounded on the person of Jesus Christ. I've concluded that he is authentic.
As a government scientist, Baumgardner has created a sophisticated computer modeling program of the Earth's inner structure. It is used by scientists around the world to model the dynamics of the Earth's core. But when Baumgardner cranks in his own data, it models a catastrophic eruption that he believes spawned Noah's flood, as described in the Bible.
There never was this long sequence of generations. All the animals that we see in the rock record have lived only within the last 5,000 years. The Bible basically says that it was the wickedness of man, just the rampant evil that was covering the earth, that God brought this destruction.
Baumgardner and other scientists, who are also religious fundamentalists, insist that scientific evidence supports the biblical story.
They know they're right because they read it in their holy book. And what they don't seem to realize is that there are hundreds of origin myths, hundreds of stories from cultures all around the world.
Some American Indian tribes believe that their people originated when the tribe followed a mole, who guided them, tunneling up out of the underworld. Hindus believe that various groups came from different parts of the original supreme being. For them, the myth is metaphor, not to be taken literally.
This supreme being was visualized as the universal person. His head are the thinkers, and his hands are the righteous rulers.
Science is the one story which is unique because there's evidence for it. There's no evidence for any of the other creation myths, beautiful and poetic as they are. Science is the one that has the evidence going for it.
But finding the evidence in evolution can be very difficult at times. In the case of a giraffe, it seems obvious. Each intermediate stage leading to a longer neck would have brought continual survival advantage as the animals nibbled leaves from higher and higher up the trees. Understanding how other animals developed is often much harder. An anglerfish goes fishing for its meals by bobbing a bait-like blob on an appendage sticking out of its head. Curiosity can be fatal. But how could this have resulted from incremental stages in evolution? Half a pole on the top of the head would not seem of much use.
This objection that what advantage would the intermediate stages have is the oldest one in the book. What the fishing rod, which sticks out from the top of the anglerfish's back, is, it's a modified spine from the dorsal fin.
Over millions of generations, mutations leading to a loose spine would have attracted hungry fish in the dark, murky water. and thus the angler equipped with a spiny pole would have survival advantage. However, creationists argue that such an explanation is not science, but a leap of faith.
Everyone is basing his or her life on unprovable assumptions. Evolutionists, for example, have an assumption that the laws of nature that we study can give rise to living systems.
Most creationists will agree that there is a process they term microevolution. Viruses, beetles, weeds. But they refuse to accept that the same science also applies to big, complex organisms.
There is no mechanism that can generate the kinds of changes, major changes we see in the major types of plants and animals.
How did such a complex organism as the eye develop? Was there a guiding intelligence behind it all? Evolutionary scientists like Richard Dawkins say, absolutely not.
When people have actually done calculations on how long it would take to evolve, even something as legendarily complicated as an eye, it's turned out that it would take a time so short that you could scarcely measure it on the geological timescale.
Dawkins points to the fact that some primitive cells were sensitive to light. They could tell night from day. To better sense motion, groups of light-sensing cells gradually evolved into eye pits. Later, a transparent lining, which might have evolved originally for protection, could have developed over many generations into a primitive lens across the top of the pit. More eons, and the result, a sophisticated eye such as that of the rare Galapagos hawk.
Even if you were able to point to some animal where neither you nor I could think of what the possible intermediates are, my response to that would be, let's go and think a bit harder. Just because you don't believe it, or just because you don't understand it, and just because I don't understand it, is probably a limitation of our imagination rather than strong evidence against the theory.
At eHarmony, we know you don't need any help figuring out what attracts you on the outside. So we help with areas of compatibility that you can't see with the naked eye. Because when compatibility meets with physical attraction...
Oh my...
Absolute magic.
There's just something so special.
It was amazing. It was instantaneous.
It's electricity.
Well, words can't even describe what it's like when attraction is ignited by compatibility. That's why I'd like you to experience for yourself what it feels like to be matched on 29 proven dimensions of compatibility.
It's just that, wow. I never met anyone like this before. We connect.
You know, my heart was racing and...
It's amazing what eHarmony has done. It's amazing.
It's hard to describe, but it's beautiful.
Experience for yourself the magic and joy of true compatibility. Log on to eHarmony.com and get your compatibility profile. A $50 value free. eHarmony.com. Log on today.
Why did your last diet fail?
If you're over 30, overstressed, and overweight, take a look in the mirror. You've got excess body fat around your waist, hips, and belly, right? Well, diet failure is not your fault. The problem is cortisol, a nasty little stress hormone that traps excess fat around the middle. But now there's Relacor. Relacor helps control cortisol and helps us lose stubborn belly fat fast. If you're dieting and still plagued by unsightly belly bulge, even if you're low-carb dieting, there's only one Relacor. Relacor helps you get thinner, look younger, and have energy to burn. Remember, when you're over 30, overstressed, and want to get rid of stubborn belly fat, the answer is Relacor.
Call in the next 15 minutes and find out how you can receive a 1-month supply of Relacor absolutely free. Call 1-800-679-1283. That's 1-800-679-1283.
Order Relacor now. It's easy. You'll love it.
Kevin Hall. He looks healthy on the outside, but on the inside, something serious is going on that he isn't even aware of. Kevin has poor circulation in his legs. That could be a condition known as peripheral artery disease, or PAD. It's serious because poor circulation in Kevin's legs can mean poor circulation in his heart and brain as well, putting Kevin at more than double the risk of heart attack or stroke. Learn how to reduce this risk. Call today and get the inside story on PAD, diagnosis, and treatment options. If you're over 50 and you have risks for heart disease or pain or heaviness in the legs, you may have PAD. Call now for your free information kit. Call 1-800-820-1097. Don't wait. Get the inside story on PAD. Call 1-800-820-1097 for your free kit today.
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? I didn't think so.
Who are these men?
That's supposing I said I've seen a pink elephant.
Scientists?
The astronomy I know I picked up in the streets.
Actually, they are. And guess what? They lost most of our universe.
That's the problem.
And when they find it?
It's going to be an enormous discovery.
Well, you'll just have to watch to find out.
There was something big missing.
Most of Our Universe is Missing premieres Tuesday, June 13th at 9 only on the Science Channel.
Evolutionary scientists are concerned about a misconception people have about evolution. It is the assumption that there is a direction to it all, that bacteria are the lowest forms and humans are the end result. This 1930s museum display is one example. Fish became lizards, became apes, became humanoids, became Homo sapiens. The final stages in which black people became godlike white people is only one reason this concept has been thoroughly discredited.
Humans have always been conceited about their place in nature. If you look at other animals and the way they evolve, there is no highest mouse, there is no highest antelope.
But there is wide variety in most other species. Land iguanas, marine iguanas, 32 kinds of seals and sea lions, 13 kinds of Darwin's finches in the Galapagos. We are the exception. There is only one variety of Homo sapiens. Today. It was not always so. 1.5 million years ago, there may have been many human species ranging the Earth.
Creatures evolve according to branching bushes, and the history of human evolution is very twiggy, very bushy. One anthropologist recently counted 17 different fossils that were part of the hominid or the human lineage, and we are the sole surviving twig.
So primates like Azy the orangutan are not a link along the way from lizards to humans.
That's a boy. Good. Very nice. Good job. Got it?
Azy and other primates are twigs on an entirely separate evolutionary bush. We humans have been experimenting for years in hopes of finding a connection from their bush to ours.
Now watch. You have to find the right picture.
One example, research attempts to determine if primates like Azy can learn human language.
Are orangutans capable of using language? The answer is yes. Are they ever going to use the kind of language that I'm using right now? No. The great apes are not getting into the same level of ability that humans get into.
Perhaps poetry is not necessary unless one finds oneself to be a poet. Then, sweetest flower, 'tis more than necessary. 'Tis my life's blood, and you are my muse.
Nay, I cannot be thy muse, though I greatly admire thy poetry and thy wit.
Human language enables us to talk about the past and the present and the abstract, and yet it is layered over a more primitive, emotive language that we do share with the other animals and the other primates.
If they say every great artist must suffer, then me being married to my wife should make me the greatest artist ever lived.
Why did humans evolve the ability to use complex language? Some evolutionists suggest we need to look more closely at a theory Charles Darwin first proposed more than a century ago. Sexual selection. The idea that organisms compete to attract mates. After all, sex is as important to the long-term survival of a species as are fleet feet, sharp claws, and powerful jaws. Sexual selection helps explain the ornate feathers of a peacock.
The peacock's tail is not a survival benefit. It makes the peacock more vulnerable to getting eaten by tigers. But it's attractive to the peahen, and that is enough for it to evolve.
Miller and other evolutionary psychologists propose that sexual selection was central to the development of the human intellect, our ability to create music, art, and poetry. They theorize such abilities evolved not to increase the chance to survive, but to increase the chance for a mate. Human intellectual expression serves as sexual ornamentation, our version of the peacock's tail.
With music, you see the clearest analogies to other animals. Bird song and whale song evolved to attract mates, and all the complexity and creativity that you see there is there because of sexual selection. Human music isn't that different.
Some language is simple, fulfilling daily functions.
Hey, don't be shy. Get up there on deck.
A working vocabulary of 4,000 to 5,000 words.
You're gonna hit that thing, you sissy!
Yet the average person knows 60,000 to 70,000 words.
Get out of there!
Words rarely used.
You look at this fantastically elaborated gift that we have for language and for understanding each other, for empathizing with each other's turns of mind. What drove that? It's as fantastic as the peacock's tail, at least. And maybe it was sexual selection that drove it.
Even when friends get together to gossip, there may be a connection to the way our brains evolved.
9 of us in the hot tub. Naked? Yes. And then the bubbles are bubbling. We start falling, you know, like we're just laying back relaxing. And then this hand creeps over. I'm like, whose hand is that? I'm looking around. I am not, I swear to God.
Gossip clearly is not just a cultural invention because it's so universal across all known cultures throughout history. People have always recognized that humans are just highly talkative animals, and you give them any opportunity to talk to each other, and they will.
This guy looks at me and says, are you wearing a slip under that skirt?
No way.
Yeah. And I told him he was disgusting, and then he started laughing and making tongue gestures. You know?
Like what?
But if you look at what kinds of things people talk about when they're gossiping, a lot of it is information about other people. Are they in a relationship? What are their personality attributes? Are they reliable and moral characters?
Sexual selection is wildly unpredictable. 2 species of birds in the Galapagos provide an example. The red-footed booby has evolved red feet because the female boobies, over millions of generations, have chosen that color. It's the same idea, but a different color in the case of the blue-footed booby.
The fact that sexual selection is unpredictable, that it's hard to model, and it's hard to go back in time and say, why did it happen in this way, in this particular species, has given nightmares to biologists.
So when you ask a question like, why do humans have such complicated language, there isn't an answer to that. We can talk about how we use it, what kind of mental machinery we need to generate it, how we compare to other species, and so on. But when it comes to evolution, there's not an answer of why or an answer of yes or no or an answer of a specific goal.
There is only one fact in evolutionary science on which all agree. The genetic code, twined in the double helix, guides the way our bodies form and controls the daily life processes. The role evolution plays in complex human behavior is less certain and the subject of endless scientific debate.
Now, both you and your children can double your reading speed in just 2 weeks, guaranteed.
Introducing IQ from Infinite Mind, the revolutionary new computer program that trains your eyes and brain to read and comprehend 2 to 10 times faster. This can help kids do better in school and give working adults a competitive edge. IQ is a series of fun, interactive 7-minute computer sessions with custom levels for every member of your family. People often achieve reading speeds of 1,000 words per minute or even more.
I was very surprised. I didn't know I could do it.
My original score was 232 words per minute, and the improvement was 453 words per minute. That's a big jump.
I couldn't keep my kids off of it. They loved the program, loved the way it was designed.
These exercises are great.
It helped me a lot, actually. I started at 137 words, and now I'm at 650 words.
Call now during this exclusive television offer, and you can try IQ yourself risk-free for a full 30 days for just $14.95. You get the CD-ROM with all 3 learning levels, a series of bonus games and exercises, a screensaver, plus the IQ Reading Center where you can enjoy whole books on CD with your newfound reading skills. You'll also receive an introduction video and user guide, plus 2 books, The iBrain Connection, and an illustrated classic like The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Call right now, and as a special bonus, we'll also send you 100 complete books on CD. These fascinating biographies of the 100 greatest people, a $100 value, are yours absolutely free. And if you and your family don't at least double your reading speed in 2 weeks, or if you're not completely satisfied for any reason, simply send it back and we'll refund your $14.95, no questions asked. Give your family the edge you need to succeed with IQ. Hurry, because this $14.95 risk-free trial offer won't last. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed, so don't miss out.
Call 1-800-694-3910 to order a 30-day risk-free trial of the IQ program for only $14.95.
You're watching the Science Channel.
With my credit, I never thought I'd qualify for a new computer. But with Blue Hippo, all I need is a home phone and a checking account, and approval is guaranteed.
We're talking to people who have discovered Blue Hippo Funding's Guaranteed Approval Program. It doesn't matter if you have bad credit or no credit, because we don't check your credit. Your approval is guaranteed with just an active checking account.
I started my own home business, something I never could have done without a computer.
And if you call and order now, we'll include this ultra-thin 20-inch LCD TV, complete with mounting brackets and speakers, absolutely free. And we'll also include this color printer, absolutely free. These accessories are free when you call and order now.
I don't know why anyone wouldn't take advantage of this. It's a great offer.
Mom, can I go on the computer now?
Just a minute.
This is your chance to get a brand new brand-name computer from Blue Hippo, regardless of your credit. And by calling and ordering now, you'll receive this color printer and this 20-inch flat panel LCD TV for free. So call in the next 10 minutes.
Tonight, science lets you play hockey on hardwood floors and gives you a place to take a nap on how it's made. Then on Beyond Tomorrow, raise an army of foosball players that look just like you. It all starts tonight at 8, only on the Science Channel. Coming up next, it lights our night sky, but do we need it to survive? Find out what life would be like if we had no moon. Up next on the Science Channel.
Do we control our own behavior, or is it in our genes? Bridget Riley calls herself Baby Doll and is one of the top woman boxers in the world. She excels in what has traditionally been purely a man's sport.
All my ladiness goes out the door when I'm in here.
Baby Doll grew up in a home of sports enthusiasts. She has 3 brothers. She was the only girl. Did her home environment, male-dominated, spur her interest in being a boxer? Or was it something in her genetic makeup?
What we can say is that we are highly influenced by both genes and culture. I've personally solved it myself. I have free will, and you don't. And in reality, you do the same thing. This is a useful fiction that we all retain in order to get by.
As we continue to explore the human genome, this question of environment versus genes, nature versus nurture, will remain a central issue.
A chimp could pass for upper class in gloves and a cravat.
Is there a gene for humor?
Why didn't I think of that?
Who was I sitting next to? Who do you think?
Is there a gene for gossip?
Up in the hot tub?
Are there genes for specific criminal behavior?
We have hypothesized that there may exist in men's brains an evolved mechanism that pays attention to the vulnerability of females.
Professor Thornhill has co-authored a book in which he argues that genes play a major role in behavior, that there is an evolutionary basis for rape. Thornhill notes that rape adaptations have evolved in other species, and perhaps there is a similar adaptation in some human males.
Females are evolving on the evolutionary timescale to control which male fertilizes their eggs. Males are evolving to circumvent that control, and that's a sexual conflict that occurs in the context of rape.
Thornhill raises a most controversial question. How much of our behavior do we control, and how much is pre-wired, the result of millions of years of evolution? As the human genome is unraveled and decoded, perhaps we will find a sequence that drives the behavioral impulse in some men to rape, and genes for other criminal behavior as well. Could we then snip them out of future generations? And along with the elimination of bad traits, we might want to insert better traits, designing by snipping and pasting in the best genes, forcing the evolution of new variations in the human species.
We already select for traits in children. When you select a mate, that's what you're doing. You pick somebody who you like the looks of and the behavior of and so on. What you're doing, whether you know it or not, is you're selecting somebody you want to help you get your genes into the next generation.
Who are these men?
Let's supposing I said I've seen a pink elephant.
Scientists?
The astronomy I know I picked up in the streets.
Actually, they are. And guess what? They lost most of our universe.
That's the problem.
The laws of physics do not work.
Well, they didn't actually lose it, but it's still missing.
A universe must have something else.
It's not physics.
Don't worry, they're looking for it.
Most of the universe is made of something else, and we have a chance to figure out what it is.
There's fairies at the bottom of the garden.
And when they find it?
It's going to be an enormous discovery.
If they find it.
People said to me, you know, this is awfully speculative. And they were right.
Well, you'll just have to watch to find out.
It looked as though there was something big missing.
Most of our universe is missing. Premieres Tuesday, June 13th at 9 only on the Science Channel.
When is a diet pill worth $153 a bottle? When you're more than 20 pounds overweight and every diet plan has failed. Now there's Leptoprin.
Specifically developed for the significantly overweight, backed by a United States patent, a double-blind published clinical trial, and an ironclad 100% 30-day money-back guarantee. Leptoprin is simply the most powerful, clinically proven weight control compound available, period.
If you're one of those people who constantly worry about 5 or 6 vanity pounds, Leptoprin is not for you. Leptoprin is much too expensive and much too powerful for the casual dieter. But if you're one of the millions of Americans who are 20, 30, 50 pounds or more overweight, you need Leptoprin.
So when is a diet pill worth $153 a bottle? When it works, really works.
Isn't it time you tried Leptoprin? Call 1-800-490-6763. 1-800-490-6763.
You're watching the Science Channel.
No other weekly financial publication moves the markets like Barron's. It provides the knowledge, insight, and foresight that allow you to stay one step ahead. Subscribe now and you'll also receive Barron's Online with its daily columns, market analysis, and tools like the Stock Screener and the Stock Grader. Get 13 weeks of Barron's and Barron's Online, all for only $39.
Call now toll-free 800-863-4100. That's 800-863-4100.
Each adventure begins the same. Stranded in the middle of nowhere without food, water, or supplies. Armed with only my survival skills and my heavy camera gear, which I'll use to record everything, for 7 days, my biggest challenge will be simply to survive. Ow! Oh, that's cool.
Survivor Man, Friday at 10, only on the Science Channel. Coming up next, it lights our night sky, but do we need it to survive? Find out what life would be like if we had no moon. Up next on the Science Channel.
As we consider the prospects of controlling our own evolution, it is easy to get caught up in the media hype about the human genome. But what are the real probabilities? To actually design humans is, for now, a fantasy.
We have 100 trillion cells. We have 50,000 genes that lead to 1 million different proteins, all in different combinations in those 100 trillion cells.
Attempts to engineer the genetic codes of even simple, tiny insects have occasionally surprised researchers. The results in one case were particularly strange. Fruit flies have been at the center of genetic research since the beginning. The very first gene ever studied caused mutant male offspring with white eyes. Normally, fruit flies have red eyes.
A mutant white-eyed fly appeared in the first fly bottles near the turn of the 20th century in Thomas Hunt Morgan's lab at Columbia. And that got him started on opening up this science of the gene.
Researchers don't operate on the tiny flies by hand anymore. Now there is a micro machine controlling a glass needle that punches DNA fragments directly into the embryo of a fruit fly. Recently, scientists at the National Institute of Health in the U.S. were injecting DNA to study nerve cell development. In the course of their work, they injected the white-eyed gene as a marker to confirm that the offspring had successfully received other experimental DNA.
So you could say it was the best-known gene on Earth, the oldest, most studied gene in genetics labs, and it had this completely bizarre, unexplained consequence for behavior that nobody had suspected.
The male fruit flies all had the white eyes as expected, but their behavior was unexpected, bizarre.
Where the males were actively courting each other, and they were generating these long chains of flies that where the lead male would frequently come around and interact with the end of the chain or partner in the middle of the chain.
Further experiments confirmed that it was the mutant gene for white eyes that also produced the strange behavior.
It was a major behavioral change. I mean, a huge amount of change came from just that one alteration in one letter of one gene in the fly, and it was a gene that was only supposed to affect the eye color of the fly. So to me, that says we're only at the very beginning of understanding how genes connect with behavior, how our attraction for each other is shaped by our genes, how our bodies and our behavior are inherited and passed on. All of that, we're just very much at the beginning of understanding.
We may have only just begun to understand how to control our own evolution. But no one can deny, after experiencing developments in the last decade, that technological progress is exploding exponentially.
I think it's so important for all of us to have some kind of working knowledge of what evolution is, how it works, what DNA is, how DNA is connected with behavior. We really do now have the prospect of holding our own evolution in our hands and making the decisions that always before have been made by windstorms and climate changes and volcanoes. All of that now becomes possible for us, and at a level of control that was never possible before.
There is grandeur in this view of life, Charles Darwin wrote at the end of Origin of Species. From so simple a beginning, endless forms most beautiful and most wonderful have been and are being evolved.